I've simplified the code from the last lecture so we can focus on one concept. So let's see what we have here. We have our extend function. We have a very simple shape constructor. This shape has this duplicate method on its prototype. After that, we have the circle constructor. We have the circle inherit from the shape, and finally we create a new circle object. So now if you go on the console and type c.duplicate, we get duplicate on the console. Now, sometimes as you work with inheritance, you may face a situation where this implementation that you have defined in a parent object may not work or may not be ideal in a child object. So let's imagine this algorithm for duplicating a shape works for most of the shape objects, but maybe it should behave differently for circle objects. What should we do? That's when we use method overriding. So we override a method that is defined in the base object. And it's very simple. All we have to do is to redefine this method in the circle object. So I'm going to copy this. Here we have the constructor. We extend it. Then after that, we redefine this on circle.prototype. It's very important to put this after extending the circle because at this point we are resetting the prototype. So if we define this before resetting the prototype, then this implementation is going to disappear. Okay, so let's put this back here. Now, in this new implementation, I'm going to change the message to duplicate circle. Save the changes, back in the console, c.duplicate. Note that we get the duplicate circle message. So the reason this worked goes back to how prototypical inheritance works in JavaScript. When we access a property or a method on an object, JavaScript engine walks up the prototype chain and picks the first implementation. So even though in this hierarchy, we have implemented the duplicate method both on the parent and child objects, the implementation on the child object will be used. Now, sometimes you may want to call the implementation on the parent object as well. Let me show you how to do this. So here, in circle.prototype.duplicate, let's imagine we're going to call the duplicate method on the parent or the shape object. If you're not using this in this implementation, we can simply call that like a regular function. So shape.prototype.duplicate, we call it like this. Now, if we're using this in this implementation, then we need to use the call method to set the context for this. So we call the call method and pass this as the context for the current object. So save the changes, back in the console, let's call c.duplicate. So first we get the duplicate message, which comes from the implementation of duplicate method in the shape object. And then after that, we have duplicate circle.